Okay, so in the last tutorial we discussed about the implementation of dynamic web page using the servlet first way, that is by implementing the interface known as servlet, and which has three methods: init, service and destroy methods. And service method is the one which is called for every user request, and whereas init and destroy is called only once. So today we'll be looking into the other two ways of generating a servlet. So let's just revise the flow which was there in this web application. The first flow is that when you run an application or deploy it on server, the request goes to web.xml. In the web.xml, if there is any welcome file, it will show you the welcome file, and after that it checks for the URL pattern mapping, whatever the URL is being entered by the user. For example, I entered welcome.html in the username in the URL, so it will go to the welcome.html, and we see that this URL is mapped to servlet, which is named as login, and this servlet named as login is mapped to a servlet class. So it goes to that servlet class, and inside this servlet class we have a service method which is being called, and in this we have got the print writer object, and we are displaying the data to the user in the form of HTML. Clear? So this was the entire flow of a servlet application. So let's discuss about the other two ways of generating a servlet. Here we implemented the servlet interface, so it will not change anything. In the web.xml, the mapping will remain same, and the welcome file is login.html, that is also same, and if we see the action, that is mapped to the welcome HTML. Now when we go to the servlet class, I'll just, for the time being, I'll just comment these methods: servlet config and servlet. Okay, let me just tell you about the servlet config also, as it is being used over here. The servlet config is basically the one which is created for every servlet. For every servlet request, the servlet config is being created, and this is the one which gives us the information about the servlet, like which servlet is being called, which class it is. So this is created for every servlet in the application. Another from servlet config, we have a servlet context also, but that is the one which is created only one per web application. It's not created for the every servlet request, but only once. And this config is created for every servlet. That is why it is passed to the init method, because it's created first only when the object of servlet is being created by web container, which is also done once only. At that point only the servlet config is being created and is passed to init. Okay, fine. So let's just comment it out, or let's remove it, and we'll just see the another way of implementing a servlet. Let's not implement a servlet. So another way is, for the time being, I'll just comment this out also. Okay, this is my just simple class. Now I'll extend generic servlet. So we will be extending the generic servlet class. So now what happens? The basic one was, the first one was the interface servlet. Fine, that servlet has interface three methods: init, service and destroy. Now there is a generic servlet class, we can extend it and we can create a servlet. But this generic servlet class has also internally implemented the interface, that is servlet, but this class is abstract. Why? Because when it implements the interface servlet, it has given the implementation of init and a destroy method, but it hasn't given the implementation of the service method. It kept that as abstract only, so that whichever next class extend this, it will have the service method implementation. So if you look over here, it will say to add the maybe I have mistaken, yeah, I have just renamed it to something. Okay, it will add unimplemented, but when we look at the unimplemented method, then that is only one. Why? Because this is an abstract class and has only one abstract method, that is the service. So it told me to implement the service. This you can just remove. This was just from my understanding. Clear? So this is the generic servlet class which has implemented the interface servlet from the top, but has given the implementation of only init and destroy and not the service one. So that is an abstract method. That implementation will be given to the class which has extended it. So this is the one. Again we have a servlet request and a servlet response. So clear. So now the content will be exactly same, that is we have to get the parameters and print it to the user. So this is the only logic which will write. So I can just omit this method. This was just to show you that only service method is the one which is not implemented, and this I have kept it. Though you can override the method in it and destroy and then its implementation also, as we can do it in any Java class. Clear. Now just save it. So this, if we run the application with this way, then also we'll get the same output. Fine. So it goes to web.xml. There the welcome file was login.html. So it showed me this. It should show you a dynamic web content, that is user specific data. And if you click, we are getting the welcome user RJ because we have displayed it this over here. So clear about the generic servlet. This was the second way of creating a servlet. It's just you need to know the name of the classes, otherwise the methods remain same and the implementation remains same. Just remember that there's only one abstract method, that is the service one. Okay, now the next way of creating a servlet is by extending HTTP servlet. Now this is not an abstract class, this is a complete concrete class, and this has extended the generic servlet class because it's like a flow over here. If you see, the flow is like this only. This is servlet. The second one was generic servlet, which is nothing but an abstract class, and the service method is abstract, and the last one is HTTP servlet, which is not an abstract class, this is a concrete class. So but this has extended the generic servlet, like third has extended second, second has extended implemented first. But in this concrete class we have init service and the destroy method. But what actually happens in service method, in this, if we see in this service method, we are having a service method, but what its implementation is, its implementation, if you see the internal class behavior, what it check is, it checks the type of request. I'm just writing you the concept. It checks the type of request, whether it is get or post, and depending on that it calls the do get or do post method. So whatever logic you want to write, you have to write it inside the do get or do post method in this class, because the service is being called, but that service internally calls the do get and do post. So you need to write the logic in the do get and do post method, the same logic which we have written over here. So if we override the method, see here we can see whatever method it has do get, it has do post. We implement that. It's working quite slow today. Fine, and you can just remove this implementation. Because we have just changed the name by it's showing this is you have removed the method parenthesis, that's working fine. Okay, so it's a do post. Why? Because we have, I guess, implemented the do post in the login.html. See the form your way, it's a method post. So now it should show you the same result. So that is what the service method implementation is. But it's just that in this, the service internally calls the do get and do post depending upon the type of request the user is submitting the form. Ajay 1 2 3 submit form, welcome user Ajay. So you're getting the same output. So this was the third way of creating a servlet. So 3 ways are interface servlet, extending a generic servlet class, or extending an HTTP servlet class. And one more thing we studied today, that is about the servlet config and a servlet context. Servlet config is the one which is created for every servlet request, whereas servlet context is the one which is created only once per web application. So that's all about the servlet.